Okay, so the United Mine Workers was a union, still is, and it was a labor union that represented coal miners. Um, and we've talked before about the issues of labor around the turn of the century, and such as um, problems in the railroad industry. There was the Pullman strike, which was the railroad strike due to the working conditions in railroads. Like the text mentioned, mentioned a little bit about that. The railroad strike came about because of high rents for workers who had to rent apartments by the railroad uh, factories, and uh, layoffs, um, and long working hours, and low wages. So there was a unity there. So the United Mine Workers was in a similar situation, but for the mine workers, actually, the working conditions was even far more dangerous than railroads. Here you have an emblem of the United Mine Workers. So the problem with mine work was it was the most dangerous profession, certainly near the top of the most dangerous professions. And the problem was extremely dangerous working conditions, not high enough wages, and long hours. Um, Health was a constant problem for miners, so this was a need for the coal mine union, United Mine Workers. Hard work deep in the mines, and then another big problem was not only the fatality rate, but the fact that young people would be hired to work in these mines. But it was like, well, it was dangerous for all ages. You see here a picture of miners, a very difficult profession, and not very high paying one. You see more miners here, a picture of them. But there was a culture that developed. These men bonded together strongly working in these coal mines. And most of them spent their entire lives doing this. And they had families and children, wives who lived around these mining communities. Mining was their way of life, and it was their culture. Many of them were religious people, and family-centered people. But whenever that horn went off of a mine disaster, um, that horn would scare people, and they knew that there had been a mining disaster. Another picture of the miners. One of the biggest problems in the United Mine Workers was very aware of child labor. You see here very young people, 12, 13, were also being hired by some of these coal mine companies. You see pictures of these young kids. They actually had a nickname. They're called the Breaker Boys, which were young teens who were working in the mines, partially because they were smaller and could get into areas that grown men couldn't reach, which is a very bad situation. You see the miners here, um, moving off coal or other material. Again, kids working in the mines, and child labor was probably in the top three or four issues of that era for the public. See the young kids here. You see many. They all knew each other. We see young ladies, sisters, mothers, all working in different ways around these coal mines. So we see more tight. There are many different types of equipment that the coal miners had to know how to operate and worked on a daily basis. tents set up near the mines where the women would feed the workers, their husbands, and the children would be raised in this environment. Pretty much knowing that this was going to be something they would be doing for more than one generation. More of the Breaker Boys. Here's a shot of the Breaker Boys. And Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, who was a progressive, um, became president, and one of his goals of the Square Deal was to regulate and ultimately end child labor and create laws to stop child labor and to so the the United Mine Workers supported Roosevelt because they knew they had an ally in that attempt. Yeah, there's Roosevelt, who spent his entire term fighting abuses in corporations and businesses. So the United Mine Workers still exists. It's still mining is still an extremely dangerous profession, and there's coal mines and other kind of mines all across the world, not just in the United States. And so the United Mine Workers is very important. Issues till today are salaries, dangerous work, health and safety, ventilation for miners, knowing about things such as black lung. There was a recent film. This was an excellent film about coal mining in Chile, and it's called The 33. It was out, I think, about 8 to 10 years ago. Certainly, we're seeing about the in Chile, the mining disaster and the rescue attempt of the miners. It's called The 33. And 33 just stood for the miners who were trapped in the mine and the huge rescue attempts of these miners. It did pretty well at the box office internationally. It was in the United States. It was in the theaters here. So yeah, it was a good film to do with the coal mine rescue. So that's the idea today on the United Mine Workers. It was founded in Ohio and was a very important organization working for the rights of coal miners.